What up, YouTube? It's Knowledge of Self-Determination. Back with some more Black history every day. Today we'll be talking about Bessie Smith. Bessie Smith was a legendary blues singer whose nickname was the Empress of the Blues. This woman was a legend in jazz and blues. She's a very, very talented individual. But today in history, February 16th in 1923, Bessie Smith makes her first recording, Downhearted Blues, which sells 800,000 copies for Columbia Records. So this woman was big business back in the day. So let's go ahead and get into her life. Bessie Smith, born April 15th, 1894, died September 26, 1937, was an American blues singer, African American blues singer. Again, I will never let you guys forget that I'm talking about Black and or African people. You know, African American blues singer, nicknamed the Empress of the Blues. She was the most popular female blues singer of the 1920s and 1930s. She is often regarded as one of the greatest singers of her era and was a major influence on other jazz singers. The 1900 census indicates that Smith was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee in July 1892, a date provided by her mother. The 1910 census gave her age as 16. A birth date of April 15, 1894 appears on subsequent documents and was observed as her birthday by the Smith family. The 1870 and 1880 census report 3 older half-siblings, but later interviews with Smith's family and contemporaries did not mention them among her siblings. She was the daughter of Laura, born Owens, and William Smith, a laborer and part-time Baptist preacher. He was listed in the 1870 census as a minister of the gospel. He died minister of the gospel in Moulton, Lawrence County, Alabama. He died while his daughter was too young to remember him. By the time Bessie was 9, her mother and brother had also died. Her older sister Viola took charge of caring for her siblings. To earn money for their impoverished household, Smith and her brother Andrew began busking on the streets of Chattanooga. She sang and danced, and he accompanied her on the guitar. Just quick digression. Busking. Busking, basically, street performance or busking, is the act of performing in public places for gratuities. In many countries, the rewards are generally in the form of money, but other gratuities such as food, drink, or gifts may be given. So when you see, street performers, like you might see a kid outside singing and using overturned buckets as drums, that's busking. Or people playing guitar or flute or violin or cello or whatever it is. But you get the idea. So back to the story. Their favorite location was in front of the White Elephant Saloon at 13th and Elm Street, in the heart of the city's African American community. In 1904, her eldest brother Clarence left home, joining a small traveling troupe owned by Moses Stokes. Quote, "If Bessie had been old enough, she would have gone with him," end quote, said Clarence's widow Maud. Quote, that's why he left without telling her, but Clarence told me she was ready even then. Of course, she was only a child, end quote. In 1912, Clarence returned to Chattanooga with the Stokes troupe and arranged an audition for his sister with the managers of the troupe, Lonnie and Cora Fisher. She was hired as a dancer rather than a singer because the company already included the well-known singer Ma Rainey. Smith eventually moved on to performing in various chorus lines, making the 81 Theater in Atlanta her home base. She also performed in shows on the Black-owned Theater Owners Booking Association, abbreviated as T.O.B.A. circuit, and became its biggest star after she signed a recording contract with Columbia Records. Smith's recording career began in 1923. She was then living in Philadelphia, where she met Jack G., a security guard whom she married on June 7, 1923. Just as her first record was being released, during the marriage, a stormy one with infidelity by both partners, Smith became the highest paid Black entertainer of the day, heading her own shows, which sometimes featured as many as 40 troopers, and touring in her own custom-built railroad car. G was impressed by the money but never adjusted to show business life or to Smith's bisexuality. In 1929, when she learned of his affair with another singer, Gertrude Saunders, Smith ended the relationship, although neither of them sought a divorce. Smith later entered a common-law marriage with an old friend, Richard Morgan, who was Lionel Hampton's uncle. She stayed with him until her death. Now a little bit about her career. All contemporary accounts indicate that while Rainey did not teach Smith to sing, she probably helped her develop a stage presence. Smith began forming her own act around 1913 at Atlanta's 81 Theater. By 1920, she had established a reputation in the South and along the East Coast. In 1920, sales of over 100,000 copies of Crazy Blues, recorded for O.K. or OK Records by the singer Mamie Smith, no relation, pointed to a new market. The recording industry had not directed its product to black people, but the success of the record led to a search for female blues singers. Bessie Smith was signed to Columbia Records in 1923 by Frank Walker, a talent agent who had seen her perform years earlier. Her first session for Columbia was on February 15, 1923. For most of 1923, her records were issued on Columbia's regular A series. When the company established a quote-unquote race records series, Smith's Cemetery Blues, September 26, 1923, was the first issue. Both sides of her record, Downhearted Blues, Back with Gulf Coast Blues, were hits. An earlier recording of Downtown Blues by its co-writer Alberta Hunter had previously been released by Paramount Records. Smith became a headliner on the T.O.B.A. circuit and rose to become its top attraction in the 1920s. Now, skipping ahead a little bit, Smith's career was cut short by the Great Depression, which nearly put the record industry out of business, and the advent of talkies, which spelled the end of vaudeville. I guess that would be movies, I'm assuming. I'm not sure. She never stopped performing, however. The days of elaborate vaudeville shows were over, but Smith continued touring and occasionally sang in clubs. In 1929, she appeared in a Broadway musical, Pansy. The play was a flop. Top critics said she was its only asset. Let's see, there's a film. I think it's the only film, St. Louis Blues, the only film that she actually was in. In 1929, she made her only film appearance, like I said, starring in a two-reeler, St. Louis Blues, based on W.C. Handy's song of the same name. In the film, directed by Dudley Murphy and shot in Astoria, Queens, she sings the title song accompanied by members of Fletcher Henderson's orchestra, the Hall Johnson Choir, the pianist James P. Johnson, and a string section, a musical environment radically different from that of any of her recordings. In 1933, John Hammond, who also mentored Billie Holiday, asked Smith to record 4 sides for O.K. which had been acquired by Columbia Records in 1925. He claimed to have found her in semi-obscurity, working as a hostess in a speakeasy on Ridge Avenue in Philadelphia. Smith worked at Arts Cafe on Ridge Avenue, but not as a hostess, and not until the summer of 1936. In 1933, when she made the O.K. sides, she was still touring. Hammond was known for his selective memory and gratuitous embellishments. She was paid a non-royalty fee of $37.50 for each selection on these O.K. sides, which were her last recordings, made on November 24, 1933. They serve as a hint of the transformation she made in her performances as she shifted her blues artistry into something that fit the swing era. The relatively modern accomplishment is notable. The band included such swing era musicians as the trombonist Jack Teagarden and trumpeter Frankie Newton, and tenor saxophonist Chu Berry and pianist Buck Washington, the guitarist Bobby Johnson, and the bassist Billy Taylor. Benny Goodman, who happened to be recording with Ethel Walters in the adjoining studio, dropped by and is barely audible on one selection. Hammond was not entirely pleased with the results, preferring to have Smith revisit her old blues sound. Take Me for a Buggy Ride and Give Me a Pig Foot and a Bottle of Beer, both written by Wesley Wilson, were among her most popular recordings. Billie Holiday, who credited Smith as a major influence, along with Louis Armstrong, made her first record for Columbia 3 days later with the same band. Now, let's see. I think I've gone over most of the highlights in her life. There is a lot more. This woman has made so many songs. Let's see. However, at the height of her success, Bessie Smith's career began to flounder, due in part to financial ravages of the Great Depression and a change in cultural mores. In 1929, she and Jack G permanently separated. See, I already read you guys that. I'm just reading from different sites just to try and get a different grasp and just a different picture of her. Maybe some people have different information, but it's all pretty much the same. But here we go. Bessie Smith was a rough, crude, violent woman. She was also the greatest of the classic blues singers of the 1920s. Bessie started out as a street musician in Chattanooga, which we already know. Let's see. In 1912, Bessie joined a traveling show as a dancer and singer, but we know it was just a dancer at first. The show featured Pa and Ma Rainey, and Smith developed a friendship with Ma. Ma Rainey was Bessie's mentor, and she stayed with her show until 1915. Right. So most of this I've already read. So I'll put the links to a lot of these different sites in the description so that you guys can do some research on your own about Bessie Smith and learn a little bit more about her. Let's see. The African-American singer Bessie Smith was called the Empress of the Blues. Her magnificent voice sent the dramatic clarity of diction. One never missed a word of what she sang, and incomparable time and phrasing set her apart from the competition and made her appeal as much to jazz lovers as to blues lovers. And also, there was a film that was made by her, or rather, there was a film of her life, which actually apparently appeared on HBO. I'm not sure of when the film actually appeared. Maybe aired. I'm not certain of that, but maybe we can find out in just a little bit. But I'm not going to read too much of it, though. Let's see. Okay. Within the first 10 minutes of Bessie, HBO's new biopic of Bessie Smith, we see the blues legend sing, cry, dance, cut, amen, and kiss lustily, both men and women. The drinking comes later, but not much. At a party at the home of Carl Van Vechten, the Harlem Renaissance patron, and Gadfly, I'm not sure what that is. Whatever. A sauced Bessie, played by Queen Latifah, belts the anthem Workhouse Blues to an audience including Langston Hughes and throws a drink in the host's face when he uses a racial epithet. Quote, it was every emotion I probably could have asked for, end quote. Queen Latifah said dreamily. Quote, she was a very busy woman, end quote. The movie is a passion project for Queen Latifah, 45, who first auditioned for the part in 1992. She had always hoped that playing Bessie in the film, which has its premiere May 16th, would introduce the pioneering but lesser-known singer to a new fan base, inspiring people to, quote, draw from who she is and flip her style for today's music, end quote. Over the years, she watched the screenplay bounce from person to person while she grew to lead a mini entertainment empire, eventually landing in a position to help develop the film herself. Now a singer, actor, executive, TV personality, cosmetic spokeswoman, and author, Queen Latifah may have developed a signature brand of feel-good feminism. After waiting for more than 2 decades, she is able to put a stamp on Bessie's unruly but powerful life. Okay. Quote, it's always been important to play strong female characters, end quote. Queen Latifah said, as she did in her 90s sitcom Living Single, and her turn as matron Mama Morton in Chicago, which earned her an Oscar nomination in 2003. When she got approval to make Bessie as a star and a producer after HBO came on board in 2009, she chose, with the network's support, to give the task of writing and directing to another black woman, Dee Rees. Let's see. I want to skip that because I don't want to read so much. I just wanted to give you guys an introduction to who she was, because this is basically focusing on the project of making the biopic. Let's see. At the suggestion of HBO, Miss Rees, 38, got the call to write her version of the script in 2012, a year after she broke out of the indie filmmaking with Pariah, an autobiographical lesbian coming of age story. She grew up in Nashville, and her grandmother introduced her to Bessie's music. Okay, so I think this actually aired on HBO in 2015, I believe. I believe it was in 2015. Now the tragic ending of her life. Apparently, she was involved in a car accident and was killed in a car accident. Let me actually go to that. Sorry about this. On September 26, 1937, Smith was critically injured in a car crash while traveling along U.S. Route 61 between Memphis, Tennessee, and Clarksdale, Mississippi. Her lover, Richard Morgan, was driving and misjudged the speed of a slow-moving truck ahead of him. Tire marks at the scene suggested that Morgan tried to avoid the truck by driving around his left side, but he hit the rear of the truck side on at high speed. The tailgate of the truck sheared off the wooden roof of Smith's old Packard. Smith, who was in the passenger seat, probably with her right arm or elbow out the window, took the full brunt of the impact. Morgan escaped without injuries. Jeez. The first people on the scene were a Memphis surgeon, Dr. Hugh Smith, no relation, and his fishing partner, Henry Broughton. In the early 1970s, Hugh Smith gave a detailed account of his experience to Bessie's biographer, Chris Albertson. This is the most reliable eyewitness testimony about the events surrounding her death. After stopping at the accident scene, Hugh Smith examined the singer, who was lying in the middle of the road with obviously severe injuries. He estimated she had lost about half a pint of blood and immediately noted a major traumatic injury on her right arm. It had been almost completely severed at the elbow. Jeez. He stated that this injury alone did not cause her death. Although the light was poor, he observed only minor head injuries. He attributed her death to extensive and severe crush injuries to the entire right side of her body, consistent with a side-swipe collision. Man. So her life was cut short, tragically, due to a car accident. But I wanted to give you guys just a brief introduction into the life of Bessie Smith, a jazz and blues legend. This woman was a genius. She was a genius in her own right. And if any of you guys have HBO, and if it's on HBO's on demand or still airing on HBO, check out the story of her life, done by Queen Latifah. I have faith that Queen Latifah probably did a pretty good job honoring this woman and with her tribute film to her. So this has been another Black History Everyday moment with knowledge and self-determination. Tomorrow is February 17th, and there'll be more Black History tomorrow. So like, learn, subscribe. I'm out. Peace.